Well, the Russian chess grandmaster and world champion Garry Kasparov has been a political activist against Vladimir Putin's government. He's a former chairman of the New York-based Human Rights Foundation, and he played an active role in the anti-Kremlin opposition protest movement when he lived in Moscow. He joins us now live from the United States. Thank you, Mr. Kasparov, for joining us here on the program. We're just hearing there from a resident in Kharkiv. Every day we are seeing people arrive here in Lviv who are fleeing the horror, fleeing the bloodshed. Are you satisfied with the response from the West?
No, absolutely not. The West has always been one or two steps behind. Many things that have been done now could have probably saved these lives and saved us from this horror 6 months ago. And instead of helping Ukraine, arming it, preparing for the war, and also imposing at least part of the sanctions, while U.S. intelligence made clear that invasion was imminent, they continued these useless discussions with Putin, and Ukraine was absolutely unprepared. Now we need more. It's sanctions, fine, but it's not enough to throw Russia back in the technological stone age. We need a full blockade, technological, financial, economic. And also, Ukraine needs more military help. And I understand the argument of those who are saying that no-fly zone is a huge risk of being involved in a direct war with Russia, military confrontation. But if NATO is afraid of this confrontation, how they are going to defend eastern flank of the organization? How Americans are going to defend Lithuania or Poland or Latvia if Russia attacks? And I don't think anybody has doubts. If Putin, God forbid, succeeds in Ukraine, bombarding this country into submission, though I think shouldn't happen, but if, then he will definitely test NATO. Any hesitation of responding militarily to Putin's new provocations will mean the end of NATO and total dominance of Russian dictator across not just former Soviet Union, but the entire Eastern Europe.
So what do you think then, that a no-fly zone should be imposed? Absolutely.
And it's already probably late. It had to be imposed earlier. And of course, Ukraine could be offered more supply, not just javelins and stingers. US and NATO, they have sophisticated weapons that could have saved Ukraine from the latest horrors. It's the helicopters, Apache, A-10, that could destroy Russian tanks. There are many options. But the problem is, we're still having U.S. administration and European nations trying to find, if not common ground, but some sort of a compromise, and they're still talking about face-saving operation for Putin. We are witnessing war crimes on an industrial scale. It's never seen in Europe as in the World War II. And there's no indications Putin will stop. You talked a lot now in this program about humanitarian corridors, but that's another attempt to compromise Ukrainian defense system, because they're trying to actually turn these people into Russia and Belarus.
Putin and Russia has said, Putin and the Kremlin has said that the humanitarian corridors should only be towards Russia and Belarus, which the Ukrainians have said is completely immoral.
Absolutely. So that's another fake. They pretend that they care about these people, but they know that very few of them, if any, will ever accept going to Russia or Belarus. Lying is one of the main traits of Putin's character. So that's why, the moment he says something, you should assume the opposite.
Do you think he's surprised at the resistance in which the Ukrainian people and Volodymyr Zelensky has shown?
Absolutely. I believe that he didn't expect that the war would go for so long. It's looking at their behavior and propaganda machine in the first few days of war, we could indicate that the plan was take over Kyiv in 2 or 3 days, install a puppet government with Viktor Yanukovych or another Putin stooge, and then back to negotiating table. Putin expected that the free world would accept the results of his aggressive war if he could succeed by destroying Ukrainian resistance in a few days. And heroism of Ukrainian
was he wrong? Was he wrong though, Was he wrong, though, to think that? Because if you think to Estonia in 2007, Georgia in 2008, the annexation of Crimea in 2014, and then we had the World Cup in Russia in 2018. There was the signing of Nord Stream 2 in 2015. So it's not as though there has been any kind of signal sent to Russia that there could be punishment for actions like this.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So that was his plan. And I can bet you that if he could have succeeded by taking over Kyiv and Zelensky on the run and the Russian puppet government in Kyiv, Americans and Europeans will be back at a negotiating table. It didn't work because Ukrainians succeeded in repelling the first advance. And Volodymyr Zelensky proved to be a real hero, staying in Kyiv and securing the work of Ukrainian government, and also, keeping the morale of Ukrainians very high. What we're facing now in eastern Ukraine, and that's most of the Russian-speaking part of the country, it's an absolute rejection of Russian occupation force. They have zero cooperation from local population, which I think it's definitely not Putin expected. So we know the outcome of this war will be a disaster for Putin's regime, but in the meantime, they can kill more and more people because failing to take over Kyiv and Kharkiv and failing to destroy Ukrainian army, he's now attacking civilians. It's not indiscriminate, it's intentional.
Well, let's talk about Russia for a moment, because in the last few days we've seen demonstrations across Russia as far as Siberia. We've seen thousands of people, over 4,000 people arrested and detained. Do you think, though, that the Russian people will continue to speak up about this ongoing conflict?
You're talking about 4,000 people arrested yesterday. In total, there are about 13,000 people arrested. And according to the new laws made by Putin's fascist dictatorship, now protesting war could end up with 3 years in jail, and spreading the so-called fake news about war in Ukraine, so talking about the real loss of the Russian army, could earn you 15 years in jail. And still, thousands and thousands of Russians are making to the streets protesting. I'm very proud for these people who want to save their pride or their honor, and also to save honor of our country. But it's not enough to overthrow the regime. We need very tough sanctions to make sure that Russian economy is in tatters, the financial system is broken, and then we'll see not tens of thousands, but millions of people. And also, Putin should not be having access to any financial resources to pay for his police and propaganda machine. Then we'll see changes in Russia, hopefully soon.